Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is the NFL playoff preview. There's so much to go over, folks. I have to admit, it won't be just playoffs. We'll talk a little bit about what's happened in the league and some of the headlines, but we're also going to talk, obviously, about the playoff scenario. You've been waiting all year for it. It's finally time, and what a great time of the year it is when you've got the college football playoff. The bowl games have just wrapped up, and now you've got the championship that's going to be taking place on the NCAA level. And now, obviously, of course, January is the time for NFL playoffs, and that's why we're here today to discuss all that. Logan Landers is our producer and engineer. Thank you, Logan, for that. And then our co-founder and the host of the show is Vincent Turner, and we have a special guest with us today. Vincent, we have Katrina Johnson, who'll be joining us, an NFL expert herself. And Katrina, welcome to the show. Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. We're so glad that you're able to join us here today.
Thank you so much. It's awesome to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about football, both the old and the new. And Vincent, let's start with you here talking about Black Monday. There are a lot of coaches that received their pink slips, general managers, assistant coaches, and in some respects, changes in organizations. Some got their pink slips on Monday. One had to wait till Tuesday. Some got their notification earlier in the season, for example, in Chicago and New Orleans. Give me your impressions first and foremost about the changeover. You're always going to get anywhere between 4 and maybe 7 or 8, it seems, every year that happens. But were there any surprises, or are there any delays that you may think that we're not done yet?
Well, of course, very surprising what they did in New England. I thought Gerard Mayo would get a second chance. Going 4-13 his first year, I thought that him being a former player would granted him a second year. I was very shocked to see that move. Even Rob Gronkowski stated that on, I believe, the NFL Today show on Sunday. Of course, everything else kind of planned out. I figured that Dallas right now be looking for another coach. Don't know what they're going to do with Mike McCartney, but I know Chicago's interested in interviewing him. We knew Doug Peterson was going to be out in Jacksonville. Of course, with the Raiders, with Tom Brady becoming a part owner now with Antonio Pierce, we all face reality there. Antonio Pierce is not going to be a Tom Brady man. But overall, the Gerard Mayo situation in New England was real shocking to me. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, it's very interesting how those contracts work. If he signed a 3-year deal and they let him go after 1, he still will get paid for 2 additional seasons. Even if he goes somewhere else, the difference will be made up by the other club, or if he gets a raise by going somewhere else. But it's so interesting, Katrina, the way that this works. And if you don't win at any level, you're suspect. And there's some folks that might be thinking, well, wait a second, this guy didn't have a very good year either, but yet he gets to keep his job. How do you justify some of that, Katrina? Is there a simple way to do that? Or is that just something that it just depends on the owner and the president of the organization and the decision that they're going to make? Katrina, to you.
Yes.
Katrina,
I think that with the exception of Mayo, I think everyone who got their pink slips will definitely do their pink slip, specifically Mayo, even though he's a... I'm sorry, could you hear me? You couldn't hear me?
Yeah, you're on now. We've got you. Thank you so much.
Okay. I am on board with everyone who was actually fired. That's including Mayo, even taking into consideration that he is a former player. I think it was just a situation where he's been in an organization, he was given an opportunity, and maybe they already have someone else in mind that'll be coming in to actually take that job. But I wouldn't give any pushback on anyone who got their pink slips, considering how the teams did.
Yeah, one of the things that I don't know how they measure, Katrina, is I know it's critically important. How many seats are full? What's the overall view? What is the paper? What are the local radio stations? What is the sports shows? You know, you got to get a temperature of the room, if you will. And if the fans aren't liking it and they're showing it at the box office, that can make a difference. Whether or not you love the coach or not, it's about making money, right? It's a money business. So sometimes there's not a a complete justification to all of that. Give me your thoughts in terms of, are we done, or do you think that there might be another one or two? Mike McCarthy, who Vincent mentioned, I found out today, or at least the story that I heard, is that the Cowboys refused to allow him to visit with the Bears. So it seems like the commitment is there, or at least the Cowboys right now are saying, stay out of my backyard, my friend. We'll take care of this on our own. You go look somewhere else.
At this point, I don't even know if Malarkey wants to stay in Dallas, just considering everything that's happened and the last couple of seasons. Like I said, I just don't think he even wants to stay. Just looking at him and just taking into consideration the things that happened over the course of the season, even factoring in injuries, just in my opinion, looking at him, he's there to do his job. He's done it as well as he could with the staff that he had. And I honestly just think he's ready to go.
Yeah, it could be Vincent. I thought they played hard last couple of weeks. They got a couple of wins that I thought that they basically turned it all in at the midpoint of the season. When Dak gets hurt here in Atlanta against the Falcons, it looked pretty glim and doom and gloom for the Cowboys. But he did a respectable job. Mike McCarthy did, in terms of my opinion, making lemonade out of lemons. Bad situation from a health perspective. Micah Parsons wasn't 100%. A lot of other guys. But they still were able at least to be competitive up until that last game when they get in Philadelphia. They weren't going to win that game, and it was tough for them just to keep it close. Does he keep his job? Is that a possibility that he may end up in a couple of days deciding to mutually walk away? How do you handle the situation in Dallas?
I mean, we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, we got the owner, Jerry Jones. At this point, I don't know what the mindset is in Dallas right now. I'm agree with you, Hop. I thought he did a very good job under the circumstances, under what he's have to endure under that type of management. And I'm going to watch my words carefully. I'm a Dallas Cowboys diehard fan, however you look at it. But I think for my sake, if I'm Mike McCartney, I think I might want to move on where I have more power. I have more control of really the players and drafting. In Dallas, there was a situation that overall, looking at the season, he did an outstanding job based on the fact he lost Dak, based on the fact I don't know what Cooper Rush's record was as a starting quarterback. I believe he went 500, and based on the fact how competitive they were. But at the end of the day, if I'm Mike McCartney, I'm looking to move on where I could get into a situation. I think Chicago will be an excellent situation because he's an offensive coach. He's coached a Hall of Famer in Brent Favre. He's won a Super Bowl. Obviously, he's done a good job with Dak Prescott because he even got him paid. And you're going with a team that really they just need a direction offensively, and you got a good quarterback in place who I still think is going to be a star in this league in Caleb Williams.
Well, interesting that you bring up the Chicago job, and I'm glad that you did, because there are rumors that even Pete Carroll has been whispering very silently in people's ears that he would like to be a front runner for that as well. And who's to say that Bill Belichick and his Tom Brady relationship would not spur a change, even though he's been in the seat only long enough to make it warm in North Carolina. Would he end up leaving that and go to Vegas? Remember, Belichick is 14 games away from winning. Well, not winning, but if he wins 14 more games, he will tie and then ultimately surpass Don Shula as the winningest coach in league history. Anything else, Katrina, before we go into the playoff games? There's a lot of news, obviously. We call it Black Monday. Some other things that might be taking place in terms of the league. I was going to mention something about the wildfires, but before we do, is there anything else on your perspective before we go to the playoffs?
No, I'm actually just trying to get into those playoffs.
Yep, let's get to it. All right, well, when we talk about the playoff race right now, thank goodness it's finally here. After 17 regular seasons, we get to talk about why we're here in the first place. The tournament for the Super Bowl and Lombardi Trophy. We've got 2 bye weeks that are coming up, or by teams. One of them, Katrina, is very near and dear to your heart. Great game, fun to watch. Sunday night, Detroit looked absolutely fantastic in their game against Minnesota for a number of different reasons. What I was surprised with, and I mean this sincerely, folks, is there have been so many injuries on the defensive side. To have Aiden Hutchinson on the sideline, kind of tongue in cheek, it's funny to have him there. He hadn't been there all season, but they probably would have dressed him up if two more guys ended up getting hurt from him. Katrina, let's talk before we go to the Chiefs. Let's just talk a little bit about your Detroit Lions and how critically important it was for them to get the win. I thought they did a great job defensively of putting pressure on Sam Darnold. They looked like they deserved the number one seed in terms of the NFC side. Your thoughts?
I'm thinking that maybe the defense hadn't eaten maybe all that day or all week because they came starving and swarming. I really, really enjoy it. I love the defense. I love a solid defense. Even though Jared Goff did his thing, I love the way the defense were attacking Darnold. Anyone who actually got their hands on the ball, I love the way that they were in attack mode, just ensuring that field goals were what they were left with as an option. And I hate the fact that they are back basically defensively limping into the playoffs, but I'm keeping hope alive for my Lions.
Yeah, I think that if there's any team that needs the rest more than the Lions, I'd like to know who it is because for obvious reasons, 14 different players have been either put on the IR or have missed time from their lineup. There are guys that I tease with a buddy of mine. One of them was bowling just a couple of weeks ago. Another was delivering packages for Amazon. One was selling shoes, at the Foot Locker. And next thing you know, they're lacing up their shoes and strapping on a helmet and playing in a real NFL game. It's just amazing how well they've been able to plug and play at certain positions. Did that surprise you in terms of the success that they were able to have, even though there were guys that weren't in the lineup, even in training camp, and the offense just kept churning and churning? Katrina, I'll start with you.
No, I'll say that I do feel like they have taken on the mantra of this season of if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, because it's like with the carousel of them rotating guys in, there has not been a change with the momentum of the game. There has not been a change on the scoreboard. And with the anchor being Jared Goff and the parts moving around him, I think he's just getting it done with whoever he has as an option. And it's just clicking on all cylinders, in my opinion, offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vincent, before we go to Kansas City, give us your thoughts and impressions. One of the things, as Katrina said, Jared Goff, but the running game, you lose David Montgomery, but Jamar Gibbs, my gosh, what a great game that he had. 3 touchdowns out of him, to the speed that he showed, especially late in the year. Very impressive. But Dan Campbell had a very interesting comment with Kevin O'Connell at the very end of the game. They shook hands, they patted each other on the back, and then Dan Campbell says, "I'll see you in 2 weeks," meaning he knows that Minnesota is much better than what they played. Vikings got bombarded with pressure, Vincent, but I think they were just outcoached for that one specific game. I think they still have a tremendous advantage with their 14 wins going in here to the postseason.
I mean, we're going to go back a couple of years ago when Dan Campbell came to Motown. That's Detroit. Like the Temptations, Smokey Robinson, the Miracles. He told y'all that the Lions are going to be a team. We're going to bite the kneecaps off, and we're going to be very competitive. But what I didn't see, and I'm really not looking at that Lions organization, Brad Holmes, who came over to GM for the Rams. And I didn't know Brad Holmes been with the Rams from 2011 to 2021. And I didn't know Mr. Holmes was involved in drafting Mr. Aaron Donald, Mr. Cooper Kupp. And now when you look at a coach and a GM that's able to work on that same level, and we talked about this, Hop, the most impressive thing about Detroit is how they really built on the offensive line and defensive line. Then the coaching staff he's hired. Aaron Glenn is up right now for a job with the New Orleans Saints. Hank Fraley is is offensive line coach. Mark Brunell is an offensive coach. What all those guys have in common? They're guys that's been scrappers like you, Mr. Harper LaBelle. So when they lost all them starters on defense, including Mr. Dan Campbell, who was with Detroit when they was 0-16, and as Miss Katrina Johnson said, hey, next man up, it's no problem. That's been the most impressive thing. And then taking Jared Goff, who was in his feelings when he left the Rams. He said that in an interview. He felt some way. Now you look at the product. Now you're looking at what we call a Super Bowl team in Detroit, who's never as an organization been to a Super Bowl. I'm very excited for the organization in that team. So with all those injuries and some of them players are coming back, the Lions to me are the favorites out of the NFC. Back to you, Mr. Harper LaBelle.
Yeah, Katrina, real quick before we go on to Kansas City, MCDC, and that's the nickname that the guys have for Dan Campbell. Motor City, Dan Campbell, MCDC. When you mention Jared Goff and all that kind of stuff, hey, what type of line do I need to have? Okay, first rounder, left tackle, first rounder, guard, first rounder, center, third rounder, other guard, and first rounder as another tackle. It's real easy to get out of your feelings and forget about the trade and realize I got an opportunity here. I went to a Super Bowl, even though we lost. I went to a Super Bowl with the Rams. I can do it here and be a hero and have a statue made if I end up winning it there in Detroit. That's a whole new market from an NFL perspective that Jared Goff has to look for as an opportunity as opposed to being a place where he's going to cry in his milk. I think he's turned it around from himself, and everybody else believes in it as well, including you, right, Katrina?
Oh, definitely. He is the epitome of walking into an inconvenience and turning it into an opportunity. I love it.
I think that Drew Brees is a perfect example of that. And whether Katrina happened or not, Drew is the right quarterback for the right city at the right time. I think Jared Goff has the very same opportunity here. But the guy that has the icing and the cake and the spoon, the fork, and the plates and everything else is Patrick Mahomes. Has there been another quarterback that we've criticized as much as Patrick Mahomes this year, in spite of leading his team to a 15-2 record? We'll start with you, Vincent. Is this the worst 15-2 team that we've ever seen in NFL history? And I say that tongue in cheek because obviously the Chiefs are so stinking good at so many different portions of the game of football that they need to be.
I'm not going to say they're the worst 15-2 team because you know this, Hop. You've been an 11-year veteran. It's hard to win in this league at any season. All I can say is what he's doing has been very impressive, man. To me, he's the next Tom Brady. The ability to even be in the same situation and have his team going for a three-peat, which has never happened on this level, is amazing. It's very amazing. And I'm going to say this. He's really not had a lot of talent at the receiver position the last 2 years. Xavier Worthy, a rookie that's been at most modest average. DeAndre Hopkins, who's on this really the end of his career. Mecole Hardman has not really played that well. He's got Travis Kelce, who probably is still playing at a level that's surprisingly, but let's get real, he's not going to be that guy he was 4 or 5 years ago. What him and Andy Reid have done has been very impressive. And most of all, one thing about the Chiefs, it's not all about Patrick Mahomes. This is a very balanced football team that's winning with defense. So all I can say is guns up, Texas Tech in the house, Patrick Mahomes. And a lot of people made a very awful mistake in what draft he came out of, 2017 draft. Help me, Jesus. All those teams that passed on him, I know y'all looking at Texas Tech guns up. Back to you, Hawk.
Well, if you can protect your quarterback, you got a chance, don't you? And then when you get a guy with the talent and the initiative and the leadership of Patrick Mahomes, just amazing. Katrina, they get a week off, well-deserved. I thought they were in trouble when they went to Buffalo and they lose there. I thought Buffalo had everything that you would need in order to say, hey, there's a new sheriff in town. But they've answered, the Chiefs have, in every way, shape, and form. They get the bye week. They get an extra week to rest. Plus, more importantly, they get to play at home. They don't have to travel. And playing in Kansas City in a playoff game, is there anything tougher?
I feel sorry for whatever team has to go in there, because when you factor in, despite the high football IQ of Patrick Mahomes, you still have Chris Jones, you got Pacheco, you got Hollywood Brown. He has so many different weapons that he's so successful at utilizing, and he's so great at executing. Even when you think you've got him sacked in the pocket, he maneuvers, He's going around guys. It's just a difficult team to beat, and they're clicking on all cylinders. And they've had some games where it appeared to be questionable over the course of the season, but he seems to just keep getting her done.
Yep, get her done 1 week after another. Well, Kansas City and Detroit end up earning the bye with the best records in their respective conferences, the AFC and the NFC, of course. And so let's look at the playoff action itself. That's why we're here today. We're going to talk about the teams that are actually playing this week. And it starts on Saturday, January 11th. The first game will be at 4:30 on CBS, and that's between the Chargers and the Houston Texans. And the Chargers will be on the road for this one. Guys, your initial thought, we'll start with you, Katrina. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind between a Chargers team that last year was picking 5th in the draft, and now they're the 5th-ranked team in terms of the AFC and how they've been able to turn it? Or is it a ho-hum Texas team that just, by the way, they're going to win their division again and host another first-round playoff game?
Well, I like the Texans over the Chargers in this one, specifically because of the inconsistencies in the offense that the Chargers have. And we got some good things going on with the defense with the Texans, and we got a couple of Pro Bowlers there. Particularly the second half, it appears that over the course of the season that the Chargers did struggle scoring in the second half, but it's a 60-minute game, so if you're only scoring the first half, you're shooting yourself in the foot, even trying to get to the end of the game with the W.
Vincent, I think that Harbaugh is got to be up for Coach of the Year. I don't think he'll win it, but at least get a nomination, which might be worth its weight in gold in terms of everybody recognizing what a significant turnaround that he's done in such a short period of time. But let's not dismay any portion of how the Texans have been able 1 year after, smooth, steady. They're 10-7. Their differential in terms of points is right at zeros. That's one of the questions that I have for them in terms of, they're just an average team, but they find a way to win. They're better than the Colts. Obviously, the Jags and the Tennessee, the Titans are a ways away. But you know what? They just keep making the playoffs, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm looking at two teams that obviously are going in two different directions. I'm going to start with the Texans. I go back to the Christmas Day game against the Ravens. To me, that was a measuring stick for me, and they didn't play well in that game against a playoff team. I think C.J. Stroud has struggled a little bit. Last week, Joe Mixon had an excellent game rushing the ball, but think about this. Mr. Stroud has lost two of his top weapons for the year in the season, Tank Dowell and Stephon Diggs. So I'm looking at this game, and Nico Collins hasn't been healthy. So when you look at the passing game from the Texans, and C.J. Stroud has struggled over the last few weeks, can Nico Collins be healthy? And John Mechie III out of the University of Alabama going to have to be huge. From a defensive standpoint, they've given up some yards. All you got to do is go back to the Christmas Day game against the Baltimore Ravens, and the Ravens really called them up. Now to the Chargers. I'm going to be honest. I'm surprised. You got to give credit to the young man that just won the national championship at the University of Michigan, Jim Harbaugh. To come in the first year, have a number 1 pick in the first round, Joe Alt as offensive tackle, change Justin Herbert's game from a guy that throwing the ball a lot to, I want to call a game manager. Then you have a rookie like Ladd McConkey, go Dogs, out of Georgia, go over 100 receptions. Then you kind of reconstruction the career of J.K. Dobbins, who's coming off a torn ACL, is giving you a lot in the running game. And if I'm correct, the Chargers got the number 1 defense in the league, correct? If I'm wrong with that, to me, that's very impressive. I got to say, I'm taking the Chargers in this game. And if I was a betting man, I think I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs right now. This is a very good, solid football team that's very balanced in the L.A. Chargers. That's just my opinion. And what Mr. Harbaugh has done, I don't know what he's saying is nobody's got it better than us.
Who's got it better than us?
There you go. But he brought that out to L.A. He Hollywood right now. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be very difficult for the Houston Texans on Saturday. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, there's certain things in that who's got it better than us. He said that in the locker room right after their game against the Raiders. And some of the guys said, nobody. but that doesn't matter. You know what does matter? Stopping the run, stopping the passing game, having a number one defense in the league, or at least right there at number one or two, and an offense that can score enough points to get you moving on to next week. Those are the results that speak louder than the rah-rah stuff. And I think Jim has brought both, and it's amazing what the Chargers have turned around so quickly from where they were at this point a year ago. They were looking at firing their head coach, which they did on Black Monday, and they made a replacement. And next thing you know, they've got a road playoff game. Not good enough to beat the Kansas City Chiefs for the division lead, but at least they're in the conversation, and they're a 3-point favorite here on the road when they go to Houston. Our second game will be Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Third time these two teams meet. There's a 9.5-point spread where Baltimore is favored because this is a home game for them. Vincent, you have to like a lot of things about what the Ravens have been doing. They started out great. They were number one or number two in just about every category. They can throw the ball. They've got a potential MVP. I still think Lamar will get it, although Josh Allen should get a bunch of votes themselves. But the running game with Derrick Henry, the defense has been a little iffy for them. Tell me where I'm wrong in terms of I think Baltimore is going to take advantage of the situation going on in Pittsburgh with their quarterback problems and limping into the playoffs the way that the Steelers are.
Clearly, the Baltimore Ravens are a better football team. Lamar Jackson has did everything on the level that you can do as a regular season quarterback. I think he win the MVP this season. This will be his third MVP, correct? If I'm right or wrong.
I'm not sure if it's 3 or not, but I know he's got at least one of them. So go right ahead. I'm sorry, forgive me.
Okay, look what the Ravens did in the offseason. They got the most prominent running back, the F-150, I call him, Derrick Henry, out of the University of Alabama by way of Florida. That's the home state he went to. They got weapons, Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers. But you said earlier, Hop, a few seconds ago, they've had some problems on defense. John Harbaugh, older brother Jim, I'm going to say this, I'm looking at the camera. You've had a good, solid playoff team over the last 2 years. You made it to the AFC Championship game last year. It's Super Bowl or bust with me with the Ravens. Lamar Jackson is not going to really remember and get his respect unless he get to the ball down in New Orleans this year and win it. That's where I'm at with the Ravens. Now with the Steelers. Mike Tomlin. The Steelers have had a very unusual year. You start out with Justin Fields. You win some games with him. Offensively, you're saying you're not being able to get the ball down the field. So basically, you go to Russell Wilson. He comes in a couple of games. All of a sudden, the passing game is going deep, over 20 yards for George Pickens. Then all of a sudden, you hit a bump in the road again, and the offense starts struggling under Russell Wilson. Then you got my homeboy from the 901, who the Atlanta Falcons let go last year with the Arthur Smith. But you still kind of rumbled into the playoffs. You've been up and down defensively. You're on a 4-game losing streak. I'm just wanting to know if Pittsburgh, which I'm not picking them to win the football game, where do they go after if they don't upset the Baltimore Ravens? Because this is a Pittsburgh team, let's face it, they're not a good football team going into the playoffs. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to keep it very short. Super Bowl resume for the Ravens. They've been talking about the last 3 years. We've been talking about Lamar Jackson being that guy, the best player in the game, that guy. But you know what? He don't have them rings like Patrick Mahomes. So I can't give him that credit. Because you know, Hop, you play in the league 11 years, and winning that ring considers you a class of elite. Over 1 million people here in the United States, there's not a lot of people walking around with a Super Bowl ring. Back to you, Mr. Hawk.
Yeah, interesting, Katrina, when you talk about what Vincent mentioned in terms of that 4-game losing streak. They go to Philadelphia. I'm talking about the Steelers now, folks, is they lose by 2 touchdowns there, another 2 touchdowns against the Ravens in Baltimore. So they were only there just 3-4 weeks ago. They lose by 19 to Kansas City, and then they lose by 2 in a close one, a home game that they really needed to win against Cincinnati. How do they get out of this funk where they've been struggling so mightily offensively? They're 27th in the league in passing. Their scoring is they're 16th in the league, so they're very average offensively.
At this point, with the inconsistencies that they're having with Russell Wilson and with the drops, the last game I watched, where Pickens, I think, dropped about 3 or 4 passes that were totally catchable. With those issues that they have in their system, I don't see a resolution happening before they play the game on Saturday against the Ravens. And I see the Ravens actually owning them and probably putting up more points than they did the last time they played them, just because they're on a Super Bowl hunt at this point.
Well, I think defensively, Pittsburgh's going to have to turn it up even more so than where they are right now. They've got 40 sacks, 17 interceptions, only 2 forced fumble recoveries that they've been able to get. So defense has done a pretty good job of getting the ball back, but they've really been the key factor in terms of my opinion about what it's going to take for Pittsburgh. Could it be another year where they get in the playoffs, they lose in the first round, they pick in the 26 or 27 spot, and the Steeler fans have to go one more year of wondering, gosh, what's it going to take for us to either get a top 10 pick? We don't want to lose, but when we want it to, we want to get to the AFC Championship game at least, or into the Super Bowl. We'll find out. Another game that is going to be taking place now. Both of those games, I'm sorry, I mentioned that the Houston and Charger game second on Saturday will be Baltimore hosting Pittsburgh, and then we go to Sunday's action on the 12th. The 1:00 game will be Denver and Buffalo. This one, to me, it'll be cold. I don't know if there's going to be lake effect snow. It doesn't matter. It's a warmer game because it's at 1:00 than if it were an evening game. But is this going to be another portion, Katrina, where we get to see Jared Allen get to break out one more time in a little bit of a different offense than what he's been running previously? But the defense seems to be there. And tell me, if I'm a Denver Bronco, what we can expect going into Buffalo for the 1:00 game that will be on CBS.
I can say you can definitely expect there to be a whole lot of touchdowns thrown by Josh Allen. I do believe that there are some issues with the defense of Buffalo, and if you can't stop anyone and you can't really put any numbers up, like you're spinning your wheels. I just don't see a fix coming on Buffalo's end that's going to prevent Josh Allen from being Josh Allen, possible MVP Josh Allen on Sunday's game.
Yeah, when you look at the numbers, Vincent, passing yards, they're 9th in the league. Rushing yards, they're 9th in the league. Scoring, they're 2nd. Defense is 11th. They give up an average of 21.6 yards. If Denver gets 21, I'd be very surprised, especially in a playoff game going against the Bill Mafia, going against the weather, going against the wind, and then obviously going against the Bills.
When you look at the Buffalo Bills, they did get over the hump, I say, this season. They got to win over the Denver Broncos. So Josh Allen, he's in the same boat as Lamar Jackson. Time to get the monkey off your back, my man. Super Bowl or bust. Excellent regular season player. The playoffs, that's where he has problems. I really thought when he kind of let Stephon Diggs go, I didn't know what was expect from the Buffalo Bills, but they've had some young players that have stepped up. Ray Davis, the rookie running back out of Kentucky, has been pretty good. Keon Coleman, the young man from the state of Louisiana by Florida State, has been pretty good. The free agent acquisition, Curtis Samuel, has been pretty good. And defensively, they've had their problems somewhat, but I still like their defense under Ed Oliver. And Von Miller's been healthy, and he's played well over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to say it as I said the same thing about the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills. Sean McDermott has done an outstanding job since he's been there, but it's Super Bowl or bust. That's what they're looking for in Bills Mafia. We got the monkey off our bat. We beat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season. It's no more expectations. Now you playing a team Denver, and I want to give credit to Sean Payton. I thought he was hard on Russell Wilson, how that situation went down. But obviously you was correct, because Russell Wilson is now having an up and down situation in Pittsburgh. When you took Bo Nix, I was very kind of like, okay, we know the career Bo Nix has had. His first 3 years at Auburn, up, down. The Auburn War Eagle Nation fell out of love with him. He goes out to Oregon. 2 seasons out there under Dan Lanning, he plays outstanding football. Coming to Denver, I just didn't think he would really be able to get the situation right first in his first year. But after I saw what he did a couple of weeks ago against Cincinnati, to lead that team offensively with 125 for a game time touchdown, I say War Eagle has arrived, and I still consider him War Eagle. And that's a dangerous Denver Broncos team because they don't have nothing to lose. And Bo Nix, I got to give credit. If it wasn't outside Jaden Daniels, he'll probably get my Rookie of the Year vote. To go in there in Denver, to get them in a playoff spot in his rookie season, Marvin Mims is a guy we haven't heard of, but we hear him now because he's on the outside playing for the Broncos, and Bo Nix has been very well in his career. And the Broncos have played outstanding defense. Patrick Surtain Jr. is the best corner in the game. And the young man out of the University of Iowa, Riley Moss, is pretty good on the other side. This is a Denver team that can cause some problems in Buffalo if the Bills don't really take them seriously. I'm looking forward to this game, but I'm looking forward to see Bo Nix play because I think out of all the players that came in the first year, he's been the most surprising player in the National Football League. Back to you, Mr. Harper LaBelle.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Thank you for bringing up the Sean Payton thing. I mean, when we mentioned Harbaugh, a lot of love goes out to the change in the trajectory of your organization by turning stuff around. Well, Sean Payton, you did the same thing, my friend. You did a great job in New Orleans. Once Drew left, I think that was not just the key piece of this. Just understand that the importance of your quarterback and the demand that you have on him in terms of the time and the effort that you have to, and the yelling at him. Sean was vocal, maybe not on game day as much, but his demand and what he needed out of his quarterback, it's well known. And Drew made it happen. And then you don't have Drew. Things turn very quickly in New Orleans. He goes to Denver. He doesn't have the guy that he wants. He gets this rookie. I imagine, Vincent, that they probably sat down one day and Sean says, listen, I'm going to say some things. I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to make demands of you. It doesn't mean I don't like you. If you can get through my yelling the way that I coach and realize that I want the best for you, and if you do it right, we're going to win. We're going to be just fine. I think that's what needed to be done. And once that was where Bo, okay, I can take it. Anything you say, Coach, I'll do what you need me to do. I don't know if Russell was at that point, but very interesting. Anyway, so the 10-7 Denver Broncos go on the road, and they'll be playing the 13-4 Buffalo Bills. By the way, Buffalo is 8-0 at home this year. Now we go to some NFC games. The second game on Sunday, Katrina, we're going to have Philadelphia and Green Bay. And the reason I bring this one up first, not just because of the time, but Philadelphia at this point last year had lost, 4 out of 5. They go into Tampa. They don't look good at all, and they lose their first-round playoff game. I don't think they're going to lose up until the championship game and be challenged. I think they're very, very good this year. They're much better than they were last year at this time. And there's this guy named Saquon Barkley, who we may want to add in as a potential MVP of the league. What a difference maker that they have there. But Green Bay doesn't come limping in. They're a very, very good football team. And if it wasn't for the Lions and the Vikings, they would be division champs in just about every other division except the one that they're in right now. Katrina, your thoughts on this game?
I think it's going to be a really good game because Philly wants to come in and show strut their stuff. They want to make sure Smitty gets his numbers, wants to make sure everyone's taken care of. But just like you said, with the Green Bay Packers, we're looking at a quarterback who hasn't thrown an interception in 7 games. You got Josh Jacobs at running back. You got Xavier McKinley at safety on the defense. So it should be a very good game because everyone has just enough to make it as entertaining as possible. And Jalen Hurts, they're slow walking him after the concussion that he had a couple of weeks ago. I don't see him not playing on Sunday. I just think it's going to be an awesome game and everyone's coming to play.
One thing, Vincent, about Green Bay is last year, if they can draw any energy off what they were able to do, remember they go into Dallas and they just dominate there. And then they go into the championship game against the the next week they go into San Francisco. They take them to the very edge that they can, and then Frisco ends up beating Detroit. I think there's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder of the Green Bay Packers going into this game against Philadelphia, but I don't know if they have enough to take on the Eagles right now in their home building and deal with those fans throwing hot dog wrappers at them and saying nice things about their moms while they enter the field.
What I take from this game, I'm going to say Dog Nation is going to be very representative. Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Jalen Carter, Kelly Ringo, Javon Bullard, Eric Stokes, Devontae Wyatt, all those guys were teammates that won back-to-back national championships over there in Athens. I'm going to start with Philly. Like Miss Johnson said, the health of Jalen Hurts. He's coming back on concussion protocol. How well he's going to be ready to go. Saquon Barkley's had an MVP season. Nice addition. The Philly defense has played pretty well. Cooper DeJean, the corner out of Iowa, has been a pleasant surprise. But this is a Green Bay team, Hawk, that's very dangerous. They playing with house money. They're a very talented football team under Matt LaFleur. Remember this, when Aaron Rodgers left, Matt LaFleur took his coaching game up to another level because he has his man under center, Jordan Love, who Miss Johnson said has not thrown an interception in the last 7 weeks. And while we're talking about Saquon Barkley, what running back has made a bigger impact coming from one team to another? Josh Jacobs. And when you look at it, this is a very talented Green Bay team. It's got talented players, man. Even though Christian Watson is out with a torn ACL, Jalen Reed is a very good player at the receiver position. Romeo Doubs is a good player. Defensively, Xavier McKinley came over from the Giants. Last year, he wasn't even sniffing the playoffs. He signed for more money. Look what he's doing in Green Bay. He's been the best safety in the game. Javon Bullard, go Dogs, has been that guy. And Eric Stokes is healthy from the Dogs. I'm excited. This game is going to be at another level. So I'm hoping Philly, on paper, has had a good season. They're a better team, but you better not slip against the pack because Vince Lombardi, Bart Starr might be coming back through them doors. This is going to be a good game on Sunday in Lincoln Field in Philadelphia. And for you Philly fans, you like to fight opposing fans from other teams, you better tone it down because Green Bay coming to your house to play some football. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, the cheeseheads can fight. I'll tell you that right now. All right, so they're 8-1 at home, are the Eagles. They're 4.5-point favorites going against the 11-6 Wildcard Green Bay Packers. And it should be a good one. Again, 4.5 is the spread, at least at this point right now. Next game that we're going to look at, that's an 8 o'clock game. It's on Peacock, so it'll be in the evening. I don't think Washington is going to mind playing in the cold weather there in Tampa, where it's going to be probably 70, 75. It's going to be pretty nice. But we've talked about turnarounds in a couple of cities. One being the LA Chargers, their situation there. Denver, of course. Dan Quinn, they picked second in the draft, and now they're 12-5. Washington Commanders go into Tampa, who's 10-7, who wins their fourth straight NFC South championship. Katrina, we'll start with you in terms of this game. Here in Atlanta, the Falcon fans are going, gosh, if we had only been able to, well, we didn't beat Carolina, so it doesn't matter anyways. But Tampa ends up winning the division, and Baker Mayfield is as hot as a firecracker on the 4th of July.
I like both teams in that game because I got the opportunity to watch Jaden Daniels against the Falcons. He looked magnificent. With Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield is a player that I love to hate because he plays with so much passion and so much intensity, and he brings so much to the game. And at this point, he's like a cannonball, and they're just rolling through teams. They're putting up good numbers. Mike Evans appears to be pretty healthy. You got Bucky Irving, a couple of running backs, but I do know that the Commanders struggle a bit with the run defense. So I would imagine if the Bucs are gonna run that ball, if the Commanders aren't able to stop them, despite Jaden Daniels being a great quarterback who appears to be mobile and he has a great arm. However, Baker Mayfield is not afraid to get out of the pocket and get done what needs to be done. So despite that, I anticipate it'll be a really good game, but I like the Bucs for that one.
You know, Vincent, one thing about the Bucs that impressed me is when that $3 million completion to Mike Evans took place, where he made the 1,000-yard club. He was shy. They had to go out of their way, and instead of taking a knee, that's how close this thing was. And for those of you who don't know, Mike Evans was at 995 yards with just a few seconds remaining in their game against New Orleans. Realizing that they had one more play that they could pull off. Baker hits Mike. Instead of taking a knee, he gains about 7 or 8 yards. He makes it into the 1,000-yard club for the 11th or the 8th time in his career. He ties Jerry Rice for the NFL record for that. Congratulations. But what impressed me most was even the defensive linebackers or the safeties or the D-line were all giving him a high five. They were all congratulating him, and they were all real happy for him. It appeared to be very genuine. Although many of those guys aren't going to see a penny of that money, I think it's great that the teamwork and the ability to win at the end is going to be a factor that carries them as far as they can possibly go here in the playoffs. Remember, they beat Detroit in Ford Field to begin the season here. So they're not a bad team at all. They just needed to get a few things straightened out, but their offense is as good as anybody's right now.
When you're looking at a team like Tampa Bay, they're a team that's third seed that can get to the Super Bowl, not because of their talent, because of the players they have. That's something that when we talk about most valuable player in the league, are we talking about most valuable player putting up numbers or most valuable player to your team? I'm going to say it again. If I had to give my most MVP votes right now, it goes to Boomer Sooner, Mr. Baker Mayfield. He's the one player in this league that's willed his team to, heights. Think about it. This team was 3 games behind the Atlanta Falcons. They had lost one of their best receivers, Chris Godwin. They turned it around. Even Mike Evans missed them games. But They brought the young man they drafted out of Oregon, Bucket Irvin, who went over 1,000 yards. Jalen McMillan, the rookie out of the University of Washington, who took second seat to Romo Doozy, 58 receptions on the year, 8 touchdowns. Then Baker's main man at Oklahoma, Sterling Shepard, is produced. Then with their secondary been banged up, Jamar Dean, Antonio Winfield, Jordan Whitehead have been injured. They've had some problems defensively. But Levante David has played at a high level. And Todd Bowles, you was on the hot seat, brother. But the man from Austin, Texas, walk on at the University of Oklahoma, 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Boomer Sooner, Baker Mayfield is the reason the Bucs are in the playoffs. And the reason Mike Evans got his $3 million bonus. I don't care what anybody says today. You might look at me crazy. You might not take me, you might say my brand is not worth anything. But if I had to give MVP votes, it'll go to Baker Mayfield. I love the young man. And based on the fact, think about this. The young man was the number 1 overall pick of the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland didn't want him. Carolina didn't want him. He had to go out to LA and play at the end of the season and play well out there to even get a contract. Boomer Sooner, now with the Washington Commanders. Hop, I'm going to ask you this. Be honest with me. You've been in the league 11 years. Did you see Dan Quinn doing what he's doing right now with a rookie quarterback?
There's no way that anyone could say the team that picked number 2 in the draft would be in the position that they're in right now. There's no way. So absolutely not. What a surprise.
I'm going to give credit to Dan Quinn. Coach of the year should go to you hands down. Based on how your time ended in Washington, and I don't care what you did in Dallas as a D coordinator, honestly, I thought Washington was reaching when they hired you as a head coach. I thought it was better candidates out there. But I got to give credit where it's due. It's the facts. The Commanders are in the playoffs with Jaden Daniels, who's going to be Rookie of the Year, and some other good players. Bringing over Bobby Wagner really helped their team defensively. Zach Ertz has really helped Jaden Daniels coming over from the Eagles. I got to give all kudos to the Washington Commanders and their new owner, Mr. Josh Harris. It's a vibe. It's a culture going on in Washington right now. Remember, first game of the year, Washington went out there and played Tampa, and Tampa won that game easily 37-20. I don't think the situation going to be like that on Sunday night. I think this is going to be a competitive football game. And I'm going to say this. These two teams here can give other teams problems on which team moves on. I like the storyline. Dan Quinn, Coach of the Year. My opinion for MVP votes, Boomer, Sooner, Baker Mayfield. Back to you, Hawk.
Okay, real quick, Vincent, who's your Rookie of the Year? Is he number 5 there in Washington? Is he your Rookie of the Year?
I will be honest with you, man. I would have to give dual Rookies of the Year. You got to include Bo Nix in for some votes.
Okay, fair enough.
My opinion. Yeah,
that's yeah. Everyone has a vote, and I respect it deeply. Katrina, I know we talked about Tampa with you. Real quick before we go on, how does Tampa handle putting pressure on number 5? He drops back in the pocket. You know, they're 17th in the league in terms of passing, right? So he's average. Let me just put it that way in terms of some of the other quarterbacks right now. But his ability to tuck and run, they're 3rd in the league in rushing. They keep drives moving because even if you bring pressure on 3rd down, he escapes, he gets out of the pocket. And watching that game against the Falcons just a couple weeks ago, he gets untouched. There's nobody going to touch that guy. He's too fast, and the league isn't ready for it yet. That's the thing right now. And they're 5th in scoring right now. They average 28.5 points a game. What worries you if you're a Tampa Bay defender against what Washington is going to be putting out there offensively?
My main concern will be finding the coverage that ensures that he is not left alone to run the ball, because of course you want to make sure that your secondary is covered so there are no bombs going back there. But at the same time, it's always a problem when you have a mobile quarterback. So the objective is just to find a defensive scheme that covers the whole table.
Well, again, the Washington Commanders at 12-5 will be heading to Tampa 10-7. One of a couple of games where the visitor has a better record, and that is the 8:00 game there on Sunday. When you go to Monday night, we have a similar situation where you've got the Minnesota Vikings, losers of that late night Sunday game against Detroit. They're 14-3, and they go from the possibility of being the number 1 seed and getting a week off to where they've got to go to Los Angeles and play against the Rams at SoFi Stadium. The SoFi Rams are 10-7 going into this playoff game. You would have to think initially, Katrina, Minnesota has the advantage, but the Rams and Stafford and somehow defensively, they're doing just enough to be competitive, and I think they're getting hot again at just the right time.
I agree with you on that, but with the issues that the Rams have had a bit over the course of the season with some inconsistencies in their offense, we can, if as long as their defense has a good outing, there's a better opportunity for them to possibly put a hold or put a stop on the Minnesota Vikings. But with the Vikings being so balanced on both sides of the ball, I would say their only issue that would probably may not even be an issue is the kicker who's come back from an injury, the field goal kicker. But going into the game, like I said, with the inconsistencies that the Rams have had offensively, if the defense shows up, it'll probably be give them a better opportunity to stop or even slow down the Minnesota Vikings. But I like the Vikings for that one.
Well, one thing for sure, the safety of everybody involved is going to be key. And the way that the city of Los Angeles is under fire right now with the heavy, heavy winds That's where I was born and raised. I talked to one of my friends. He's a guitar player, Scott Tamberg, and the building where he would normally go on the weekends to go play, it's gone. It's been burned up. So there's a lot of issues going on to where the league right now, Vincent, is saying we're going to take this moment by moment. We're going to see what we can do about making sure that we play this game, but there's no indication at all that these fires are going to be out by that time. So you're going to have a lot of more serious situations taking place amongst the safety of the people of Los Angeles before you get the game. But when you look at the Rams right now, they're 10th in terms of passing, which you would expect. They're 24th in terms of running, and they're 20th in terms of scoring. They're getting better. They won the last couple of games. They've beat the Cardinals, the Jets, the 49ers, and the Bills, and the Saints. So a 5-game winning streak coming into this. But when you think about it, Minnesota, in my opinion, is much more talented. Give me your thoughts and perspective here on this game.
Before I start, I want to give kudos and much prayers and blessings to the people in LA, and I hope their situation is really, really taken care of. That is a very serious situation, and I hope that they're able to play the game on Monday night. But first and foremost, it's about the families out there in LA. Start with the Rams. Very unique season, up and down. Matthew Stafford has finally got healthy, but they have been inconsistent on offense because they've had some players injured. Cooper Kupp, their star receiver, hasn't been healthy. But what I've been most impressed with is Chris Shula, the D coordinator. What he's done with them young pieces that they drafted in the draft, Jared Verse and Brandon Fisk from the Florida State. Both of them have been very outstanding. I believe one of them made the Pro Bowl, but I'm not really have the true answer to that. But I think the Rams have played defense at certain times this season, and Cam Kitchens, the safety out of the Miami, has played real well. Chris Shula, the grandson of Don Shula. The Rams, we didn't expect them to win the NFC West, but you got to give kudos to them. They've been very, very well in winning that division. To the Vikings. You want to talk about comeback team of the year, comeback players of the year. Kevin O'Connell, I was kind of brief early when I'm kind of giving Dan Quinn coach of the year. I might need to step back and give 1A and 1B. You lose a guy that's supposed to be your starting quarterback that you took 12th overall in the draft. You had a guy in Sam Darnold. Let's be honest. A lot of people saying he's an epic bust. Didn't work out with the Jets. Didn't work out with the Panthers. A backup with the 49ers. I'll be honest in saying today, I did not see this season coming with Sam Darnold. I'm very surprised. The young man out of USC from Southern California, same area that I host this from, Mr. Harper LaBelle. And I know you want to smile because Sam Darnold's a USC Trojan. He went in there. He took advantage of the situation. The ball didn't drop on offense. Justin Jefferson has had an outstanding year. Jordan Addison, Green Bay. Even though you signed Josh Jacobs in free agency, I don't know what you was thinking about with Aaron Jones. I know he still had some good quality football in him. And then you look at Brian Flores, what he's did on the defensive side of the ball. Brian Murphy, signing Stephon Gilmore in the offseason. Jonathan Grenard from Harriman, Georgia, which is 15 miles from where I live at in Douglasville, by way of the Houston Texans. This is a very good 14-3 football team, and they're not going to look at what happened last Sunday night against Detroit. You're right, Harp. This is a team that we could be looking at playing in the NFC Championship game, like Mr. Dan Campbell said, in 2 weeks. This is a very balanced football team with a red-hot quarterback. Back to you, Mr. Harper LaBelle.
Well, the biggest issue I see, the difference maker for Minnesota right now is their defense. And in spite of getting mowed over in that one game against Detroit, you can look back at their body of work throughout the course of the season, and they're number 5 for a reason, right? They're good. They're fast. Their linebackers aren't the biggest guys, but they can get to the quarterback. My gosh, they did a great job of putting pressure on Jared Goff there. But Jared, guess what? They ran the ball. They ran some delays and some screens, and it paid off for them. But I think they will snap back. At least I trust that the Vikings and their fans will skull everybody into an interesting road win. I certainly think that they have the better lineup. They are a 1-point favorite, so it's actually a much closer game, at least in terms of the betting line. Any final thoughts on this weekend, Katrina, of football, or any specific game that you would have before we head on out. But one, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and secondly, let's kind of wrap this up a little bit with a look at all these games and an overview and anything that we may have missed. Katrina, start with you.
I don't have anything to add. I'm just excited about the football. Glad that it's the playoffs, sad that it's the playoffs, because that means the Super Bowl is coming and football season will be over. But no, I definitely don't have anything to add. Just really excited about seeing these games and to see who's headed to the next round.
Well, starting with Friday, then with Saturday, and then all day Sunday, and then Monday evening, you've got 6 games that will be including some of the best, except for the number 1 seeds, and some interesting ball games. And Vincent, your final thoughts here before we head on out here on this show.
Well, every year when I want to say the tournament starts in the NFL, we have our teams that's clearly that we think are the favorites. Then we have some teams that we don't really think are going to advance. This year, of course, Kansas is the number 1 seed along with Detroit. But when I'm looking at in the first weekend, I'm looking at the Chargers. They get by the Houston Texans, I think they're going to be a problem. Then I'm looking at the Green Bay Philly game. I think that might be the best game of the day. That's going to be a real tough game for Philadelphia, man. Green Bay is a team that's very talented, especially on offense. Then you got the Rams and Vikings. I was one guy that said, well, the Rams over the next few years after they won the Super Bowl, and especially after Aaron Donald retired, I said, well, the Rams are going to start falling off a little bit. But they keep getting to the playoffs, man, with the man from Georgia, Matthew Stafford. They're a team that if they could get by the Vikings, they're a team that can be a surprise. And, of course, my favorite team left in this tournament is in the NFC, and it's in the NFC South. It's Boomer Sooner, Baker Mayfield, and Tampa Bay Bucks. I think they're a very dangerous football team with him under center. The moment is not too big, and what the Buccaneers have done, they have won despite adversity. And remember this, people, no disrespect to the Falcon fans. They were 3 games behind the Falcons, and they end up winning the division and end up being strong. That's what's most impressive to me. That's what I call winning. That's what I call teams being together. Boomer Sooner, Baker Mayfield. Back to you, Mr. Harper LaBelle.
Well, you got teams in this league like Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, Green Bay and Philadelphia. Throw in Tampa because they've won their division now, 4 years in a row, that are mainstays. They've been there for a while. There's a reason that they get where they are. But then this year, you get to throw in Minnesota. You get to throw in the LA Chargers. You get to throw in Denver. Who would have thought that Washington would be in the playoffs 24 or 12 months ago? Just a thought. No one would have done that. So the turnarounds and the newness make it all that more interesting. And if they are able to advance, those teams that haven't been here, I can't imagine what the excitement in those cities is going to be like, and jerseys will sell out on the racks. But we get to get our first view of it here starting on Saturday afternoon. So we want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in today. Katrina, thank you so much for being a part of it. Our analyst, Katrina Johnson, is a guest that got to join us today for the NFL show. We thank you for her being a part of that, for Logan Landers, our producer and engineer, and obviously for our co-host and founder, for Vincent Turner, the man, the myth, the muscle. Thank you so much, Vincent, for being a part of the show as well. I'm Harper LaBelle saying thank you, everybody, for tuning in to 100 Yards of Football. This is the NFL Playoff Preview. We hope you have a fantastic day.
Boma!